morning. Welcome to our first in-person professional development session in 3 years, maybe. So those of you who are returning, welcome back. For those of you who this is your first in-person session, like myself, welcome. Thanks for being here. We're really excited to talk to you today about workplace conduct and ethics. The bulk of this session will be talking about HR-related topics and facing sexual harassment, and discrimination in the workplace. Accordingly, I just want to give a content warning. So if you need to take care of yourself at some point during the session and step out, please feel free to do that. You don't have to explain yourself. You make yourself comfortable however it is that you need to do today. So we have a jam-packed day today, so we'll do a couple minutes of welcome and introduction. We will talk about workplace expectations and then unacceptable behaviors in the workplace. We'll take a break. We will then talk about intervening in the workplace. So if you see something happening at work that makes you uncomfortable or that is clearly harming somebody, how it is that you can maybe intervene. We will have lunch together. We'll do a question and answer session for anything that might be lingering for you on this topic. And then we will do our group reflections. So any questions on that? Okay, so since we're together in person for the first time, I want to talk just a little bit about maybe some expectations for the space. So the first thing I want to say is if you have to use the restroom or grab water or anything like that, just feel free to do that. You don't have to raise your hand. Step out, come back. That's totally okay. We also talked at the beginning of the summer about the ABCDs of SummerWorks. So that was meaning be active, be bold, be confidential, and turn in your deliverables. And I'm thinking today that maybe the most relevant things are active, bold, and confidential. So can anyone share with me anything that you think you might need today from your peers to have a great day at professional development? Yeah, Maya. Awesome, yes, being respectful of everybody's answers. We will definitely have that as a group norm in the space. Okay, so I'll add in that let's assume a posture of generosity when we're listening to others. So we'll assume best intentions. And even if that means that we will speak back to someone and try to get them to clarify what they've said, if it's hurtful, we will certainly assume that it wasn't the intention to be harmful. And from that same position then, do no harm as much as possible when you speak. Anything else? Okay, well, we will transition to announcements, and I will call Kathleen up to give us a hand with those.
All right. Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm Kathleen, if you haven't had a chance to meet me yet. I am going to be around all day if you need anything, but I just wanted to go over some quick program announcements. So first, COVID guidelines. Hopefully you all filled out the health screen on your way in. If you have not, come see me and I can give you the QR code. Secondly, just a reminder to keep wearing your mask if you are able and comfortable. Obviously, if you're having a snack, having some water, please feel free to take it off. But if you are able to just kind of keep it on as much as possible for everybody's safety. Mentorship meeting. So hopefully you all had a chance to meet with your mentors at the mentorship kickoff last week. If you have not, come check in with your success coach during reflection, or you can talk to me, but just a reminder that you should have started meeting with your mentor this week. The Cooter assessment, Olivia will be checking in with you if you have not turned in your Cooter assessment reflection. And just as a reminder, that was on Canvas, and it's a career exploration tool that we use. Sorry, I'm not used to speaking with a mask on, and I'm like breathing. Okay. the Midsummer Palooza. So hopefully you all got an email from Kirsten yesterday, and so we are planning for the Midsummer celebration. I know it kind of just seems like we just started, but halfway through the program will be mid-July, and so we wanted to start getting RSVPs for that. And so essentially that will just be an evening of games, fun, food. It's not mandatory, but we encourage you to come. It should be a good time. You are welcome to bring your family or friends with you, and it should be a good time. It will be at the Ypsilanti Freight House, but you do need to RSVP by July 1st, okay? And you should have gotten an email, and we will also send another email following up from this PD. Gift cards. Jordan, do you have an update on the survey cards?
Yeah, so they should be sent out in the next week or two. So be sure to keep an eye out for those. Yeah, so hi everyone, this is Jordan. So you might remember way back at the beginning of programming, you completed a survey, which we said you would get a $5 gift card for. There was a delay in processing those, but they should be coming to you in the next week or two. So be sure to keep an eye out for those in the mail. And they do look kind of like junk or spam, so it comes in like a white envelope with your name. So be sure to keep an eye out, because if you throw it out, we can't replace it, unfortunately. But we do apologize for the delay on those, but they should be coming your way. Yes, Allison.
Yeah, so I was going to say that next.
Yes.
So if you completed the virtual PD as well as the deliverables, you will be getting a $50 gift card. And so we are going to have those at next Friday's PD session for those of you that will be here, and you will receive it in person. That way we don't have to worry about them getting lost in the mail. So that will be next Friday. And then also next Friday, so all summer long, most of our PD sessions will be in this room, in this space. So hopefully everyone was able to find it today. The only exception is next Friday. It will be at the Ford School, which is, trying to see if you can see it from here, but it is further south on campus. But the address is on all of the syllabuses and key dates, and we will send out a reminder. But next week, we will be in a different place. I know that's a little bit confusing. And then after next week, we'll be here for good. So if you need help with directions, especially bus routes for next week, please let us know. And I don't know who's next. Jordan.
Okay, awesome. So we are going to get started today with just a little bit of a conversation. And so I just want to pose this question to you guys first, which is, what do you want out of your workplace? Oh, yes, and Kathleen can bring the mic around. Yes, Maya.
Support when you need help.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great one. Okay, I see Kathleen. She's running around.
Growth in the team.
Yes, absolutely. Those are both great ones. We definitely want someone who's going to encourage us to learn more and help us grow as professionals and individuals.
Challenges.
Yes, absolutely. That's another great one.
Learning new things so that you can try to get more knowledge about that thing that you learn at the workplace.
Yes, awesome. Thank you, Allison. Oh, I see someone. Yes.
Experience. Transparency.
Yes, that's a good one too. Awesome.
A peace,
Oh, yep, go for it. Sorry.
a peaceful atmosphere.
Yep, that's a really important one. Yes, thinking about the kind of atmosphere and having some place that's calm for you, if that's important. Okay. Did everyone get to share? Who wanted to share? Perfect. Well, those were some really awesome responses, and I think
Some things that you guys really highlighted were really wanting to learn and grow as individuals, and feel that support, and really just have a workplace that fosters your needs. And I think we also heard transparency. And so really, I think what all of these kind of come back to are those ideas of workplace ethics that we're going to talk about more today, and just creating that environment where individuals can learn and grow and create that safe place where, you feel comfortable not only working, but, being challenged, growing as a professional and individual, and really just having that equitable space. So awesome. With that, I will pass it off to Tabitha, I believe, to get us started, or Kirsten. You both tag teaming it. And I'm sorry, I don't know how to work.
All right. Oh, it's so fancy. Hi, everyone. I'm Tabitha. So now we're going to talk about what you can expect, and you all highlighted some really great points on what you want. And now we're going to get a little bit more in depth on those ideas that Jordan kind of rounded out on inclusion and equity. Perfect. Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah. Gorgeous. Thank you all. All right, so perfect. Now, first let's talk about inclusion. What do people think inclusion means? Can I go to the next slide? Is it working? It's not a touch screen, by the way. All right, so ideas are expected to be equitable, inclusive, and safe in the workplace. So now, I will ask, what do people think it means to be inclusive? Let's see, we have a hand over here. I can't see your name tag, I'm so sorry.
Oh no, you're all good. It's Evie. My name is Evie.
Evie.
But to be inclusive to me means to make sure that everybody feels comfortable in a space.
Yeah, that's a great point, absolutely. We have another hand.
And I'm just going to make the suggestion if you could say your name before, just so that we
great
start to get
idea.
familiar with names.
Deja, and inclusivity means that all are welcome or included.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got Allison.
I was
over
basically
here.
going to say that same thing.
Oh, perfect. Great minds think alike. And we'll take one more over here.
My name's Sydney, and I think inclusivity is no clicks in the workplace.
Oh, that's a good one. Absolutely. So you're all touching on a lot of really important pieces of inclusivity. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing. And what we can all boil that down to is just everyone feeling an equal member and of equal importance in that workspace. Awesome. All right. So kind of in the same vein, what do people think it means to be equitable? All right, we've got Evie with her hand up over here. We've got Jayla as well.
Making sure everyone has like accommodations if they need them, or like equal access to resources.
Yes, get some snaps from that one. Absolutely, Jayla. Thank you. Evie?
I was going to say something along the same lines, but just making sure that everybody gets what they need.
Absolutely. Those are great things. And also just in the way you both said, that was so wonderful. Thank you. Just thinking about how can each team member be able to succeed and everyone give what they need to succeed and have equal access. Absolutely. So now we're going to go through, you guys are really nailing this, but we'll go through a quick little graphic in a moment. But you guys hit this on the head. So yes, equality and equity are not the same thing. So can anyone think of why that might be different? Any guesses? I see Reese with her hand. Oh, lots of hands. Got Maya. Yeah.
I believe equality is everyone getting the same thing, but equity is when everyone gets what they need.
Oh, absolutely. Did you peek at the slides for the next slide? Okay. Okay. And we have Maya.
Yes, I was going to say something similar. Equity is about fairness, and equality is just about getting the same thing.
Exactly. Wonderful. All these great minds thinking alike. Over here.
Sorry.
Okay.
I more or less think about it as like equity is leveling the playing field so you can get to that equality easier.
Absolutely.
While equality is, everyone getting the same things.
Yeah, absolutely. Is that Cheney? I can't see you.
K.
K.
Wonderful. Hello. Thank you, Kay. All right. Perfect. So, you guys really hit this, but we have this graphic, and this is, you may have seen this before. It's pretty common, but as you all were saying, equality, everyone has the exact same bike, right? That's fair, right? Everyone has the same thing, but these aren't all the same people. So in reality, as you all pointed out, people have different needs, and to be truly equitable, we need to make sure that everyone's getting those needs so we all have an equal opportunity to succeed in a workplace. All right, perfect. And then one more, okay. So last one for me, what do we think it means to be safe in a workplace specifically? All right, we have Sydney over here with her hand up.
People respecting your boundaries.
Absolutely, yes. Being able to set those and then those boundaries being respected is a great one. Any other thoughts we have about safety? I see a hand over there.
I would say to be comfortable.
Comfortable?
My name's Haley.
Hi, Haley.
Hi, Tabitha.
All right. Any other ideas about safety?
Just to be secure and not to be put in danger in any way.
Wonderful.
Janie.
There's Janie. Hello. Wonderful. Anyone else feel like we want to hit something else on safety? Good. Wonderful. Those are great answers.
What if your job involves like physical labor?
That is such a great question. So, oh, we've got a hand over here.
My name is Micah, and if you are doing manual labor of any sort, just following the precautions and wearing proper equipment and any regulations, making sure you adhere to them.
Absolutely. And we had another hand over here. If you still like to, you don't have to if you don't want to. Absolutely. So having that proper gear is so important. And also making sure that your employer is taking care of you right. You're able to have breaks, get water if you need, take restroom breaks. So being mindful of what you need and having that gear, but also having an employer that supports that and make sure that you're taken care of. Absolutely. All right, perfect. So Kathleen, is this your slide? Because it's me. Wonderful. So just a review of all that we've talked about for inclusion and equity. So remember, inclusiveness, we all want to be an equal member that is equally important. And this is if you're peers or if it's your boss and someone who is a subordinate, you still want to feel as though you're equally important, even if you have different roles. And then equitable, again, those needs being met and everyone's specific needs being met in that moment. And then safety, again, having your boundaries respected and also having those physical restraints there to protect yourself and your body and also your mental. So with that, I will pass. Oh, yeah.
All right, so just kind of some final things on expectations. And so, you know, we've talked about what you should expect from employers in terms of safety, equity, inclusion, but what are some things that employers might expect from you? It might not be on. I turned it off, sorry.
My name is Haley, and just to listen to them.
Okay,
Just
listen to them. All right.
My name is Kais, and a strong work ethic.
Strong work ethic. Okay.
Micah again, punctuality.
Punctuality, that's definitely an important one. Got some hands over here too.
Staying until you leave and not leaving early.
Okay, so making sure you fulfill your commitment and the time that you said you're going to be there.
My name is Kennedy, and professionalism and involvement.
Okay, awesome. So
What does that mean to you?
Yeah.
To me, that means like instead of not doing anything or whatever, like involving yourself, being more like into the job, keeping up on what you need to do, and then also not being like being professional with you and your employers and whoever you need to deal with in your job and speaking to them in a respectful and professional manner.
Yeah, that's awesome. And just a quick note on that, we've been talking out through all these sessions about how to communicate professionally, dress professionally, and, we're kind of reviewing things again and again. And so hopefully it seems like Kennedy has a great understanding so far, but we'll continue to build those skills. So awesome.
My name is Cameron, and being on time and communicating well, like if you're going to be late, communicate that ahead of time as advanced as possible.
Yeah, so communication, really important too. And again, timing, punctuality.
Hi, I'm Kay. Again, more or less just holding the same respect towards them and everyone else on your team as you expect from them.
Awesome. Really like that one.
Deja and flexibility.
Okay. Can you say a little more about like flexibility?
Like being open to changes, like if somebody can't come, like being able to like pull your weight and like maybe somebody else's, or if something changes, like you just being open-minded to being flexible.
Yeah, definitely. Especially that comes in handy a lot when you're working with as a team. You may or may not be this summer, but if you have team members and needing to fill in for them sometimes too, definitely.
How did we handle that at SummerWorks when we have people out of the office?
Yeah, so we all take turns doing different things. So there will be certain weeks where one of us may not be here. And so, we make sure that we communicate with one another to make sure that our responsibilities are covered. I don't know if anyone else wants to add to that. Yeah.
Excellent. So, for example, I was gone for 2 weeks, and everyone stepped in and not only spoke for me at orientations and PDs, but I know Kirsten specifically stepped up and took a lot of my emails and helped a lot of you folks out. So just being able to help on multiple levels in a team and being flexible, as Daisha said, is always really wonderful.
Yeah. All right, other expectations anyone wants to have that your employer might have from you? Okay, there's a couple of them that I just want to touch on. So it's important that we talk about these things. So obviously you want to make sure that, you are, as we've mentioned before, showing up on time. But I just wanted to stress the fact that, on top of representing yourself, you're also representing SummerWorks as a program. And it's really important for us to maintain good relationships with our employers so that, they can continue hosting interns and that the program can keep happening. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Also, again, we've talked about dress code. If you know specifically your internship's dress code, be sure to follow that. If you have not had a chance to learn what it is yet, don't be afraid to ask questions or email ahead of time if you haven't figured that out yet. Olivia?
Does anyone want to share what the dress code is at their workplace? Yes, I'm going to come over to Allison, but feel free to raise your hands and we'll come find you.
So this summer, I'm working at Washtenaw County Parks Recreation Commission with Daisha. So this is our shirt for our internship. It's kind of just, I don't know.
Yeah. So certain situations, you might have a uniform, more or less, to say.
Yeah, show off the staff bit in the back, absolutely.
Yeah, Daisha might have one too, but she's not wearing this.
I always wanted to be a camp staffer, so I'm really jealous of Allison right now.
You'd be a great camp staffer. I'd go to that camp.
Anyone else want to share maybe what they're expected to wear if it's different?
My name is Cameron again. I work at the University of Michigan Library. Ours is just like casual wear, just no belly shirts and things of that sort, and no open-toed shoes.
Okay. That can be important, especially when pushing book carts. You don't want your toes to get hurt. Anyone else? Does anyone have to wear business casual? All right, some hands. I mean, you don't. Oh. Well, I just was curious.
Oh, okay.
But
I was going to come and pass the mic, but that's okay.
Yeah. Did you have?
I have to wear business casual.
Me too.
Yes, I asked all the success coaches to to wear business casual. Okay. So we are all examples of business casual at the moment. All right, and then one last important thing that I wanted to touch on, and so this is really important and it needs to be said, but make sure that you are not showing up intoxicated to your workplace. That is obviously something that is very serious, and you want to make sure that you are representing yourself and that you're showing up to work ready and capable. And so, there are severe consequences to that, and so just want to put that out there as a very important expectation as well. All right. And we're going to get into the next few slides about more inappropriate behaviors and what not to do at work. And so I am going to pass it back over to Tabitha and Janae.
Tabitha, sorry, can I cut in 1 second?
Absolutely.
One more expectation that your employer has of you is that you will report your time accurately, on time, and correctly. So as to not sort of speak around what I mean, do not file any hours that you didn't actually work. And if you didn't make it to PD on Friday a particular week, don't file hours for PD either. The employers do check in with us about PD attendance to make sure that you actually were here, and it has caused some trouble for interns in the past who have reported that they came to PD and filed those hours, and then attendance records don't reflect that. So please be mindful of that and respectful of your employers in that way, in accurately and fairly reporting your time. Thank you.
Yes, and one more thing about that. Yes, honesty is always the best policy, except when talking about Santa. But in terms of, thank you, I appreciate that. But when talking about submitting them on time, I'm someone who really struggles to remember to submit my hours. So please come and talk to me if you want tips on how to remember to do that. I struggle with it. It is something that I have learned to do, and I'm happy to help. But
again, like what was said earlier, the next couple of slides are a bit sensitive. So if you do need to step out, take care of yourself. We totally understand. You don't need to let us know. But again, just a heads up for the next few slides.
Oh. Well, it feels so official. Okay, wonderful. Okay. So, all right, so wonderful. As Janae said, we're going to talk about some more sensitive things, and sensitive things being harassment. And these are obviously unacceptable workplace behaviors, not only to perpetrate, but also to feel within yourself. So we're going to talk a bit about what that looks like, who experiences it, and how to handle it as well. So again, take care of yourselves as you need throughout this. So first, sexual harassment can be defined as unwelcome and inappropriate sexual remarks and physical advances. It can take place in many different ways, and including some that you might not immediately think of as being sexual harassment. So we'll definitely go through and talk about this more in depth, but feel free to raise your hand if you have any questions or anything like that as we go through. It's just a little button.
So as Tabitha said, sexual harassment is basically any unwanted, unwelcome, inappropriate, any sexual remarks, any physical advances, any touching. And I'm saying it like that because I really want to emphasize the width of sexual harassment and how the different ways in which it can be like perceived and like conducted onto someone. So this is the iceberg graphic. Tabitha, I don't know if you want to say more about that, but.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is another really common graphic and also a metaphor that's used. So when we think about an iceberg, right, there's what's above the water. And we can see that, right? You're driving a boat, you see it coming. But like an iceberg with sexual harassment, there's things that are under the surface and things that you may not think of as sexual harassment, but really have an impact and can make people uncomfortable and are just not acceptable behaviors. So does anyone have any questions about that? I know it's a little bit nuanced, but it is important to know. Yeah. Wonderful. You guys are going to be oh, we've got someone here. I'll run up with the mic. It's Anna, right? Yeah. Wonderful.
I'm Anna. This isn't exactly a question, but you'll come across different definitions of sexual harassment because the legal definition, societal definition, and psychological definition are very different. So just keep that in mind if you see different definitions and all of them are accurate and acceptable.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Anna. Oh, yeah.
I'm Allison. How do you prevent sexual harassment in the workplace?
So that is a really great question. I'm going to walk as I answer your question. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So the first and easiest answer to the one half of this is knowing how to not sexually harass someone. So that's how you can not do it. So knowing what that looks like, how you're making people feel, and just being mindful of that. The other and more complicated piece is how to not be sexually harassed. And there's no way to do that because you can't control someone else's actions. So what we'll go through kind of at the end of this section is what to do if that does happen to you. But ultimately, you cannot control how someone else treats you. And it is never someone's fault when they are sexually harassed, no matter what they look like, their position of power, how they're dressed. So that's definitely something we want to emphasize in this section. Sorry, I'm out of breath.
Yeah, that was perfect. And it's definitely hard to speak behind the mask. But we just wanted to go over some of the different forms of sexual harassment that might be familiar to you guys and may not be. As Tabitha mentioned, the iceberg is a great example because it shows some of the things that we don't necessarily come across on a daily basis or aren't really as popular as some of the other forms of sexual assault. So, for example, on the bottom of the iceberg, we have vulgar name calling, like calling someone the B word or something of that nature. Obscene gestures, everyone's, knows about the middle finger, things like that. They're not acceptable in the workplace, obviously. But another example would be like nude images posted or like making sexual innuendos, like, and again, we're gonna go over an example of this later, but these are all kind of examples of what is just not acceptable. And at the top, some of the more familiar forms of sexual harassment that are included are like groping, obvious ones like touching. I'm not gonna touch Tabitha, but if I were, that would be severely inappropriate. Promising sexual, like professional rewards for sexual favors is another one. If our professor would have come up to you and say, hey, like I'll change your grade if you do X, Y, and Z, that's inappropriate, right? So these are just outright things that you should never be experiencing. No one should ever do any of these things to you, but again, we just wanted to highlight some of the, I don't want to say popular, but some of the more common, some of the more well-known forms of sexual assault, and then just highlight some of the ones that we don't typically come across on a daily basis or aren't really as heard of.
Okay, perfect. So listed here is a really helpful example sheet. And one thing we really want to touch on is that sexual harassment and harassment in general in the workplace and outside of the workplace can be direct and indirect. Does anyone have any idea what I mean by that? Oh, we got Q with the... I should have let Janae do this. I'm sorry.
So, direct can be like directly saying something that makes someone visibly uncomfortable or touching someone in a way that is not acceptable. And then passively, it can be like a remark that can be taken in any way that still makes someone uncomfortable, or like accidentally touching someone or purposely accidentally touching someone. Like brushing by someone saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, but you meant to do that on purpose." Like ambiguous actions like that could be passive.
Great examples, right? So like the subtlety of it, being subtle with a gesture, doesn't really take away from the disrespect. So those are great examples.
A direct one could be, like he said, doing something and it's pretty obvious that it's like harassment. Something indirect can be like spreading rumors with coworkers at the job and it's not said directly to you or things like that.
Absolutely, that was a really great example.
That was exactly the
Gossiping.
example I was going to say. That's perfect. Sorry.
Gossiping and like rumors, spreading rumors, things like that. Also very harmful to your workspace. It makes your experience a lot less enjoyable as well.
Wonderful. And then another important thing is there's this typical image that comes to folks' minds when they think someone's being sexually harassed. We said this before, and we'll probably say it a million times. This can really happen to anyone. It's not just women. It's not just young people like yourselves. It's not just people in a position of power. It can really look any way. And just because a certain person doesn't fit into that archetype of what you would expect someone to look like when they get sexually harassed doesn't make their experience any less valid. Wonderful. And then more clicker.
Okay, so next we're going to talk about harassment in a virtual workplace. Some of you do have internships online. We'll talk about harassment because school is on Zoom now. We're on Zoom talking to you guys, so we'll just go over a couple of concepts there. So like we mentioned, your supervisor or anybody that you are working under or with should not be inviting you to go places outside of work hours or setting things up outside of a virtual setting. Again, if your internship is strictly online, there should be no reason for anyone to contact you outside of that vicinity, basically. Unless it's, like planned by your supervisor or someone in advance and it is work related. Anything outside of that is outside of, our span of safety and harassment, so.
Right. And one thing, and again, these topics are super nuanced, so Olivia, cut me off at any point. But an example, I invited Jordan out to go to a movie with a group of friends. I truly hope you did not see that as sexual harassment. I don't mean to call you out. But so we don't want to scare you into thinking you can't build work relationships or friendships with your peers in a work environment. So sometimes these things can be very subtle, as many of you have pointed out, and it can be hard to tell at times. You can always talk to your supervisor or some program staff here. We're always here to help illuminate any questions or ambiguities you may be feeling.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that, Tabitha. Definitely don't want to discourage you guys from forming relationships, but again, just wanting to go over what is safe and what is protocol in a lot of situations. So just keep that in mind. And again, if it feels uncomfortable and if you have to question it, there's a reason for it, and you can always ask someone about it, talk to someone about it, talk to another supervisor or someone that you feel safe opening up to. So.
Absolutely. Would you like to go through this scenario, or I can?
Which scenario? Oh, go ahead. Okay.
All right, so now we're going to run through a quick scenario, or I'm going to describe a quick scenario, and we'll talk a little bit about it. So June and Jake work at this company, and June just thinks Jake is the cutest, the absolute cutest. They're about the same age, they're peers, and so she looks at him because she thinks he's cute, and she fantasizes about dating him and really wants to get to know him better. And Jake notices every time he looks over, June's just making the googly eyes at him.
Can't keep following him. Things like that.
Jake gets up to go to the water cooler. June follows. The coffee room, June follows. Jake is not interested in these advances and is starting to become uncomfortable, and it gets to the point that other coworkers start to notice. So what do we all think about this scenario? Oh, thank you so much.
Jake should maybe either say something to June in a professional manner or talk to someone over them, like a supervisor, and let them know that he's uncomfortable.
Absolutely. We got Maya over here with the.
I agree with what you said. I feel like it's very unprofessional to make advances like this at work. And I think that Jake should go to his supervisor to see if there's some mediation that's available or a report that he can file.
Whether intentional or unintentional, June's behaving incredibly creepy and inappropriate. I think Jake should go to HR and just let them mediate, but I'm not sure because there's probably protocol.
That's a great solution. HR is always a great option, and it can be the first option for you as well if you don't feel comfortable speaking with your supervisor. Anybody else want to share any possible solutions or say anything else that is totally inappropriate about this situation?
Absolutely. Okay. Wonderful. So we chose this scenario because it, again, is very subtle. And though June never touched Jake or sent inappropriate messages, it was still harassment, and it still made Jake and other coworkers uncomfortable. So these things can be very subtle, and we just want to be mindful of the nuance and the subtlety that this can really take shape of.
So again, some final points. And again, Olivia, any supervisors, let us know if we are missing anything regarding this. Again, this is extremely difficult to kind of convey and to kind of get across, but again, your supervisors and coworkers should not be asking invasive questions about like where you live, your background, or anything like that. Your supervisor should not be persistently asking you to meet outside of work, especially if you are on Zoom. And you shouldn't be asked for something for another thing in return. So a service for a good, a service for money, anything like that is inappropriate.
And illegal.
Yes.
And illegal.
And illegal. So we just wanted to make that really clear. Does anybody have any questions before we move on?
That's okay. I just have a question about how to deal with microaggressive behaviors because I know they're not oftentimes seen as harassment.
Yes, that's an excellent question. That dealing with microaggressions in the workplace, I have to be totally honest. As a Black woman, I have yet to figure out how to exactly handle that. I would say, I don't know, you're not alone, for one. You can always speak up for yourself, stay respectful, take it to your supervisor. Those are my 4 tips for handling it. Tabitha, do you have a different or a better answer than that?
Yeah, so I don't have a better answer, so we are going to go more in depth talking about this soon. And I think, as Janae pointed out, you are not alone. And also, I think you really accurately pointed out that it's often not seen as harassment. And that is an important distinction from it is not harassment, because it is, and it is harmful. Yeah. So we'll talk more in depth, and just in this, especially in this space, just always know you can come and talk to us. And we, especially if you don't know what to do or you just need to talk to someone, we're always here to help you handle that. And it is never your fault. And it is something that we will do everything we can to help you with. Oh, yes. And now everyone's favorite, a pop quiz.
Okay. So, first question. What are some things employers can expect from you?
A, being on time, B, following dress code, C, reporting time worked accurately, or D, all of the above?
D.
Geniuses.
I really like what Q did. He held up his hand to show a D. That's a good option. Thank you, sir.
Yes, yes. So all of these are expectations from your employers as well as us, and we will do our very best to provide the same to you.
And if there's ever support you need to do these things, you know where to find us. All right, so which of these behaviors qualifies as sexual harassment? We have A, relentless pressure for dates, B, promising professional rewards in return for sexual favors, C, unwanted sexual discourse, or D, all of the above. Oh, I love the confidence. Thank you all. So happy.
Okay. And what are some ways in which sexual harassment can take place in a virtual setting? So the first option is a supervisor asking you to meet them somewhere not work-related, a coworker asking overly invasive questions, a quid pro quo, it's the first time I've said that perfectly, or all of the above.
Wonderful.
Perfect.
You're noticing a theme here. They won't all be like this, but. All right, and now we'll pass it to Olivia. Thank you all. That was a really hard topic, and you all did a great job, by the way.
Okay, so I'll start by posing the question to y'all. In your understanding, what is discrimination? Yeah, Maya. Tabitha's coming over with the mic.
To me, discrimination is targeted negative behavior based off of a factor that you can control.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
I definitely agree with Maya. In addition, like showing hate because of someone's race, which again is something that they cannot control.
Absolutely, yes. I think I saw Micah's hand in the back.
Purposely singling out someone or a group of individuals because of your own personal opinion or believed to be fact.
Excellent.
I'm Allison, and I definitely agree with Micah.
Like excluding or perpetuating hate towards someone based on their identity or identities.
And your name?
Oh, I'm Aisha.
Aisha.
Also, not being accommodating to certain things that people can't control, like with physical disabilities and stuff like that.
Awesome. Your name?
Lucy.
Lucy. Great. So excellent and robust definitions from everyone. For our purposes, we'll kind of think about this as taking adversarial or negative, like y'all said, action against a person based on their social identity. Federally, there are a couple of classes that are protected classes of identities. The ones that are federally protected are age, race, gender, sex, including pregnancy, sexual orientation, and gender identity, religion, national origin, and physical or mental disability. And then your state or local governments can also add protected classes to this. So some places that you might work add caregiver status or marital status and other things to that list. Like sexual harassment, discrimination can take many forms, and it can go undetected when it happens sometimes. And if it's not brought up and if it's not addressed in the workplace, it can create a really toxic work environment in which people do not feel welcome or included and are in fact sort of pushed out. Discrimination can happen in hiring, of course. So for example, if you don't hire someone because of their belonging in one of those groups, but it can also happen in the workplace, in interpersonal interactions as well, and in the microaggressions that people brought up, and that'll be kind of where we spend the bulk of our discussion on this today. have y'all learned about microaggressions in other settings? And if so, how would you define them? Evie?
Personally, I have learned about microaggressions in school and also like in certain programs that I've been a part of, and I would define it as something, as like a remark that is not inherently like, you know, racially motivated or sexually motivated, but then if you like take time to process it and think about it, you're like, wait a minute, they could have said that if, you know, I wasn't identifying with this identity. And yeah, I just see it as something that is like an aggression that's usually not intended on being an aggression, but it comes off that way to somebody who's a part of a marginalized group.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can think of that as like statements maybe that have a disparate or different impact on different people depending on the groups they belong in. And discrimination at scale can have disparate impacts, right? So for example, laws or rules that a company might have that they'll only hire people of a certain height has a disparate impact on women who tend to be shorter than men. And so the courts have said, well, it has to be a reasonable workplace accommodation, even if, you know, the job involves reaching a high shelf, that the workplace will provide ladders. And so we can think of that as sort of the at scale or large form version of this. And then as Evie's talking about, we can think of these like disparate impact statements, things that affect groups or people differently when they're on like a one-on-one or interpersonal or intimate basis as the microaggression. So we're gonna give it up for our AV person, Dave, today. Can we get that first video?
For people who still don't think that microaggressions are a problem. Oh, you're so well spoken. Oh, just imagine, instead of being a stupid comment, a microaggression is a mosquito bite. Ugh, it's a compliment. Mosquito bites and their itch are one of nature's most annoying features. But if you're only bitten every once in a while. No, where are you really from?
Cleveland?
Sure, it's annoying, but it's not that big a deal. The problem is that some people get bitten by mosquitoes a lot more than other people. I mean, a lot more. Whether it's on a date.
Oh, your English is so good.
Excuse me? Going grocery shopping. You know, everything happens for a reason.
I'm just buying apples.
Commuting to work.
So when are you gonna have a baby?
Watching TV.
We have to keep the Redskins name. It's part of our culture and history.
Or just walking down the street with your partner.
I couldn't even tell you were gay.
Mosquitoes seem to pop up everywhere.
Do you know John? Give me shopping advice. I love Cher too.
And getting bit by mosquitoes every day.
Can I touch your hair?
Multiple times a day.
So pretty.
Can I touch it, please?
Can I please? Is annoying. And makes you want to go ballistic on those mosquitoes. Which seems like a huge overreaction to people who only get bit every once in a while.
It's just a mosquito bite. Who cares? Just another angry black woman.
Of course, beyond just being annoying, some mosquitoes carry truly threatening diseases that can mess up your life for years.
Astrophysics? Maybe you should try this challenging major.
Ow, my dreams.
And other mosquitoes carry strains that can even kill you.
He looked like he was up to trouble, okay? I felt threatened.
So next time you think someone's overreacting, just remember, some people experience mosquito bites all the time.
You're all so exotic. Wow.
And by mosquito bites, we mean microaggressions.
So we started with that one, which we think is a little bit more humorous or short, lighthearted, but talking about a very serious issue, of course. How does that comparison to the mosquito bite and how some people experience them all the time match with what you already knew about microaggressions?
Okay, this analogy matched because being a person of color and a queer person, I have experienced microaggressions, and it's more of an ignorance thing opposed to a prejudice thing. It's not like someone's going out of their way to like bite you, I guess, with a mosquito bite. It just like, happens ignorantly. But yeah, I guess that's.
Yeah, but it has an impact, right? Awesome. Micah?
I would agree with the ignorance point, but also before the video, I was gonna say it's often disguised as jokes and passed off lightheartedly and met with the phrase, I didn't mean it like that. So those are also important to look for.
Yeah. Sydney, is that it?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I feel like some microaggressions are also covered up as like compliments, and they're not really compliments.
Yeah, do you want to say more about that? I don't want to put you on the spot, so.
Yeah, like the one of like, oh, you talk so well, and it's like, what do you expect? You want me to like talk broken English or something? Or like some people be like, oh, you're pretty for a dark-skinned girl and stuff like that.
We got Lucy in the back.
For me, the question, like, oh, where do you actually come from is, it's always such a microaggression, and yet, like, I actually was born somewhere else, so that's kind of like a bane for me.
Do you want to say more? Lucy? You don't have to. Okay.
Oftentimes, sometimes people don't know you're part of a certain group, and they'll say something that they don't know is hurtful to you. And that doesn't mean that it's still not okay to say. And I just wanted to point that out.
On the topic of, people saying to Black people, you're so well spoken. It's kind of like people have associated, AVE as like ignorance. It's kind of like Black people are still just as educated and just as intelligent, despite the fact that they use a different way of phrasing or speaking than white people.
Yeah, absolutely. Kay, do you want to spell out for people what AAVE is?
African American Vernacular English.
Awesome, yes.
I would also like to say this is also very common for people living down south. Like, they just say things a lot differently, like Southerners, foreigners, those that don't speak English as a first language. These are all common forms of speech and just things that you should be aware of.
Is there anything that you feel like that video wasn't able to capture given its length or its tone that you want to get on the table about microaggressions also? Maya in the front has a comment, and then I think Reese as well.
Just comparing certain things to mosquito bites, it doesn't quite capture all the emotional and mental things that may happen. I know they touched on some may give you diseases, but also, some may give you depression, and mosquitoes don't necessarily do that.
Absolutely. Reese?
I think microaggressions also include like using different languages, like different language for different people. Like there was an issue in my class where there's this one guy who would refer to Black people with bro and only Black people, and I'm pretty sure that's a microaggression. Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
I know it's discrimination. It's just
Micah?
The one thing I think the video needed to add to it is the internalization and how much you can learn about a person based off what they say. If you just stop and listen to the comments people make on a day-to-day basis, you'll learn more about them than what they allow you to originally let on.
Absolutely.
Hi, I'm Jared, and I just wanted to kind of add on that they don't really emphasize how it is perceived when people who are constantly experiencing microaggressions respond to it, because that is a really complex and really difficult issue, especially when, for example, because they are perceived as mosquito bites, a lot of people who experience them won't bring them up, and then when they do, it may come out, in a way that these people who don't experience it, they start to, think, oh, they're overreacting, and then it brings in further prejudice, and it becomes, a really big issue.
If you think about it, it's kind of like elementary school when kids are saying a bunch of stuff, and then the kid's like, don't be a snitch.
So sorry, just to make sure I'm kind of vibing with you there. There is pressure not to report a single microaggression when it happens. But as Jared was saying, when we don't do it, it might build up in such a way that it kind of changes the person's character or really has a really profound impact on the person and the space and the relationship. Is that what you're getting? Awesome, yes. Okay, we have a second video that we'd love to show.
Happy birthday to... Take it away, Amanda!
No, I'm fine.
Oh, come on, it's Sarah's birthday. Let's hear you sing. Sing. Come on, Beyonce.
Happy birthday to you. That was so beautiful. Anyway, who wants some cake?
Yes.
It's not easy being the minority in any situation, but in the workplace, as the only black woman, it can be a very frustrating and stressful environment.
Okay, Beyonce. Now let's get in formation for this kick.
I'm just in the middle of something. I'll be there in a sec.
Oh.
And that, my friends, is an example of a microaggression. So what is a microaggression? Brief, commonplace, daily verbal, behavioral, or environmental indignities, whether intentional or unintentional, that communicate hostile, derogatory, or negative prejudicial slights and insults towards any group, particularly culturally marginalized groups. That's right. I've read up on this. It felt so good to be able to label that behavior, to give a name to the underlying stress and discomfort that comes from being confronted by microaggressions. He means well, but that's what makes these aggressions, well, micro. Intent is not the same as impact, and a throwaway comment or joke can have a huge impact on the rest of someone's day. I spoke to some friends about their experiences in the workplace. How does it make you feel? So we talked a lot about like these microaggressions, out and out racism, like in the workplace. How does that make you feel?
I know that I definitely feel kind of other, very separate to an extent that I don't talk about any kind of black experiences I have outside of work.
Some of the things that I don't like are those sweeping statements. Has anybody got an umbrella? Debbie will have one because black people don't like to get their hair wet.
Right.
And here is the kitchen, where we really get things cooking. But seriously, guys, this space is used by everyone, so just be mindful about strong-smelling foods. Right, up next, the photocopiers.
I'm always like super polite, super kind, super cordial. Everyone's like, oh, Essie's super friendly, but sometimes I do just want to like snap back at somebody or get annoyed, and I feel like I can't.
I feel like the second I display passion for doing a good job, people are like, whoa, 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 whoa.
That was great, Amanda. I'm not sure the figures are quite accurate, though.
Actually, I double-checked them with finance to make sure, and they're spot on.
Whoa, girlfriend, maybe dial down the sass a little?
For a lot of my white colleagues, they're quite happy to just have all these discussions about racism, but because it doesn't affect them emotionally, whereas for me, it's quite difficult to hear those conversations because it's like I've lived through a lot of that, and I'm just trying to do my work, and you're bringing up these really difficult issues for me.
Oh, Amanda, thank God. Explain to Sarah what the Black Lives Matter movement is.
All jokes aside, it can be very difficult when you find yourself on the receiving end of this kind of behavior. So, what can you do about it? Well, I have a few ideas. Firstly, Set up the situation. Kate, you know when you took us on that tour the other day? Next, objectively describe the behavior and get clarification. You asked me to explain the Black Lives Matter movement. Why did you ask me? Next, and this is the most important bit, explain the impact. If you want the behavior to stop, people need to know why. John, when you use phrases like, whoa, girlfriend, or describe me as sassy, it feels like you're accusing me of being aggressive and makes me worry about sharing my opinions. But I haven't seen you do this to any other members of the team. Final step, do differently. Work together to come up with solutions to ensure that you do things differently in future. To be completely honest, I hate singing on my own, and I don't think it's fair to put someone on the spot like that. Self-selected solos from now on?
Right.
Okay. It's not always going to be that easy, but hopefully these tips will provide some helpful navigation through difficult situations. And if things don't improve, or if you don't feel comfortable confronting a colleague, talk to your boss, HR, or union rep. Racial discrimination at work is illegal. It's everyone's responsibility to think about the impact that their words might have on someone else. Now, if you don't mind, I've got a party to get back to. Who's the cake?
Thank you so much. So as we were noting, kind of despite the name, the micro, the damage done by microaggressions can be large, and I think we kind of saw that in the video. Does anyone have any thoughts about that video? You could compare it to the first or just take it on its own. Anything you want to add? We're going to start in the back, and then we'll come up to Maya.
Okay, I was just gonna say that the line between macro and microaggressions is often really small, and especially in terms of like outward comments towards people.
And your name?
Oh, Cheney.
Cheney, thank you.
I did prefer this video over the mosquito bite one because it was going over actual experiences and real life situations that can and have and will happen to many people.
Mm-hmm.
I really like this video because I have experienced a lot of these things, and so I didn't see it as microaggressions. I just saw it as Caucasian people being Caucasian. So it was really weird, but you know, now it's nice to have a label to things.
I think the video did a good job in being a call to action in her method of combating microaggressions. Because in all honesty, like the mosquito video comment about not saying anything, if you nip it in the bud, it's less likely to happen again. So if somebody makes a comment and it makes you uncomfortable, the likelihood of them making another comment or thinking to have that same thought process is significantly less if you stop them and go, that's not really what we need to be doing right now.
Yeah, and Micah, do you mind starting us off with what were some of the steps that she gave in the video for combating them?
The first one she said was set up the situation. So accurately describing the time and place that this happened. A lot of times people do things absent-mindedly. So putting them back in that space and they go, oh, I did say that, allows them to actually reflect on the comment made and not how it made you feel at first, and then going into how it made you feel to piggyback off of what the situation was.
Absolutely. What were some of the other steps suggested in the video? Oh, perfect. Yeah, Jared.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I agree a lot with what was said there. I just wanted to add on that it really is a good idea that when possible to make these follow-ups and these conversations happen in writing. It is very, very important, especially when you're talking to HR, that these conversations happen in writing. So if they do have to happen again, there is a record of it. And if, for example, legal action does need to be pursued, that there is written record of that conversation.
Great advice.
Okay, so we had set up the situation, What else? I saw afterwards she did a really important and something that I think a bystander could do too. So it doesn't always have to be the person who is impacted or has the statement directed at them who's doing this conversation. So if you hear someone say something like that to your coworker, one of the things she said in the video is, why did you say that to me? You can ask as a bystander, why did you say that to her, to him, to them, right? And kind of get the person to explain what they were thinking. And oftentimes when they have to do that, the impact or the microaggressive nature of the statement will be revealed to us. Tabitha.
Sorry to cut in, guys. On that vein, I heard a piece of advice about microaggressions that it is one of the fastest ways I've learned to nip it in the bud. So if someone makes a microaggression or even an inappropriate joke that makes you uncomfortable, not laughing and just saying, why is that funny? Just like saying, why did you ask me? It makes them stop, and then they have to verbalize why they asked you or why they thought it was funny. And then it takes a lot of the emphasis off you to educate them.
Also, don't let them or whoever's talking to you belittle you into what just happened. I think it's very important to say, like, hey, that wasn't okay, and don't, like, dance around the topic. Like, be very upfront, because, again, they could take it as a joke when it's not a joke. And I think immediately saying, like, don't do that is very, very important.
Name, please.
Oh, Naja.
Naja, thank you.
To bring it to the do differently point, remain strong in your conversation after the fact, because a majority of the time situations might not change, behaviors can't continue, and upholding that same boundary and expectation each and every time a comment is made and making sure that you continue to, one, document it, and two, enforce those conversations is incredibly important because behaviors are not going to change unless they're forced to, especially when they're done so subtly.
Definitely. And that kind of gets into that third tip, right, which is make sure you're explaining the impact that the statement had on you, which of course we acknowledge takes a certain amount of emotional toll and labor from you, but can be important in kind of forcing or encouraging someone to change by saying, if they truly did not mean it, then understanding the way that it hurt you might change that behavior. And if the behavior continues, as Micah notes that it might, then Jared's point, of course, about documenting it and making sure that these kinds of repeated interactions are being noted in writing will be helpful. So I'm going to let us take a break. We'll take 7-ish minutes and come back at 11:32. And then we will transition into a discussion of what we can do when these things happen in the workplace.
Thank you. Okay. So now that you all have a pretty good understanding of what sexual harassment and discrimination can look like in the workplace, it is very hard to talk with this mask on. It's important that we consider how to address these things. And so what are some ways that you think that you could address harassment, any type of harassment that we've talked about already in your workplace? Yeah.
You can address it directly by confronting the person that's committing these unacceptable acts.
Yep, directly.
You could introduce it in a Socratic fashion and having an open discussion so that everybody's understanding of it is on the table, and then going into why it's not acceptable.
Yeah, I like that, bringing it to everyone's attention.
Socratic fashion is like an open discussion. If you've ever sat in a small group and then everybody just kind of talked over a topic or over a discussion prompt, that's a very loose idea of what a Socratic discussion would be.
Yeah, thank you. Any other ideas or suggestions? How could you address harassment in the workplace?
Talk to a supervisor. My name's Haley.
Yep, bring it to your supervisor. Allison has an idea.
I'm sorry I've been talking a lot, but just trying to avoid discrimination and sexual harassment in the workplace.
Be loud about it, like make them uncomfortable with making you uncomfortable.
Yeah, I like that. Definitely own your space. Feel empowered to bring those things up. What about one more? Yep, over here.
Maybe before it happens, just setting clear boundaries with the people you work with.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. So, remember first and always to consider your level of comfort and your level of safety. And so I'm going to go over this list of things, but I think sometimes this can change depending on how comfortable and how safe you feel, or, if you don't feel comfortable or safe, one option may be better than the other option for you. And so based on your answer, after you ask yourself, am I safe? Am I comfortable? How am I feeling? You can walk away. You can tell them to stop. And so I want to pause real fast and just get a couple more people to maybe give me an example of how you would approach someone and tell them, like, hey, stop, if you had experienced some type of harassment or discrimination.
I think the point of truly embarrassing them, not embarrassing to where they're humiliated, but making them understand why what they said is not okay and making them feel called out about why what they said is not okay.
Yeah, I think it's really important to, call people out and make them own up to their own things, hold themselves accountable. Thank you.
To add on to that, call them out during the act or after, but I think during is better because it's in the act, they're doing it, and they'll know it's in that moment.
Yeah, I think, stopping them in their tracks can be really impactful. Any other examples? Okay. I think telling them to stop in that moment is another suggestion. Document the incident. We've already talked about how important that is. I think even in the moment, if that's the only thing you're comfortable doing, it's really important to still write it down and just have it for yourself to present later, or just keep a record of things so that you can continue to hold people accountable when you do feel safe and comfortable. Tell your supervisor. I think we've already talked about that. Someone who is there to, create comfortable and safe environments for you. You can always reach out to us at SummerWorks. Any one of us, we're here for you. And then, of course, you can reach out to a caregiver or another trusted person outside of your work or within your workplace. Maybe you have a coworker or someone to kind of help you process that. Before we move on, are there any other suggestions or ideas, ways that you all could see yourself in your workplace right now addressing a type of harassment or discrimination?
I would say being 100% direct. Don't go when you're coming to them or something and you feel like you should come to them. Don't try to go around it. Be 100% direct. Say, this is what you did. This is what I didn't like, and this is what needs to change in a way.
I think it's really important for all of you to realize that your feelings and what you're experiencing is valid. And so definitely want you all to feel empowered to bring those things to people in the moment. I know that being in a new workplace or whatever, sometimes I can feel intimidated, especially when I'm working with people who are older than me or have been in, the career field longer than me. But that doesn't mean that I don't matter or that my environment doesn't matter and that my feelings don't matter. And so definitely, I hope that none of you ever experience any of these types of things, but if you do, please take action when you can and when you feel comfortable. Anyone else, any last thoughts or ideas before we move on? Okay, awesome. I think this was also my slide. Oh, there we go.
Oh, how's everybody doing? Good deal, good deal. This is fancy, right? Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of work off of two devices here, so bear with me, but we're gonna make it work, right? Reporting. So, reporting adverse behavior. It's integral for maintaining an inclusive and equitable work environment, right? The general manner that this occurs is as following. Adverse behavior occurs. Someone reports the behavior to a supervisor or organization that handles these issues, and the investigation may ensue. Let's see, I want to ask a question here. So let's say it's one of us, not necessarily as heavy as the previous slides on the sexual harassment end, but if someone just filed a report about us, something we did, maybe we were being late, maybe we were being loud. The question I want to ask is, how could we know, or how do we know when somebody's done something wrong, or if we've done something wrong? How do we usually find that out? Yeah, usually somebody will come and tell you. Hopefully, right? Hopefully somebody will come and tell you personally, so you don't have to hear it from around the way or the grapevine. Go ahead, Q.
When you can see that someone is upset, when you can see that someone is upset by something you said or did, or you can see that someone is upset based on what someone else did or said.
Right, there's like visual cues, right? Sometimes you might hear something or, notice someone upset, the sound of their voice or whatever, or you might see them visibly distraught, things like that. I'm gonna get to some more questions too, though. But who you can report depends on who you can report to. Depends on your workplace. But SummerWorks staff, we're always here and available to assist, right? Let's see. I do have a question of my own. So, at my workplace, I have seen somebody visibly shaken, uncomfortable by some things that have gone on. This person in particular, she felt kind of powerless to the situation, right? She thought if she were to go about reporting the behavior, that there would be some sort of retaliation, or they would make things difficult for them as they kind of continued through their organization. What could someone do in that situation?
Well, first, I think you should educate yourself on all your rights and to know that retaliation is also illegal, and to still, even though there may be repercussions or, you may feel that your job is in danger, to still keep your principle and report.
Thank you.
Definitely. To add on to what Maya said, or actually not to add on to what Maya said, but if you are a witness to something like this, I think it would be great if you were to go up to the individual that you see who's distraught and kind of having a conversation with them about next steps and what options are available to them, whether that be reporting or something else.
Right. Anybody else have any input here? We got a mic at the back table.
I think the other thing is, if you don't feel comfortable reporting it, and I don't know if this is legal, but like finding somebody you trust and can confide in, and then having on your behalf, or for the sake of the situation, having somebody else report it if you necessarily can't feel like you can in that moment or after the fact.
Right. So, let me see here. Whichever. So this bottom line here, it kind of speaks exactly to what you just said. There should be a designated person for this, right? You should be able to identify them after your first day. That's an important part. It's a truly important part. Go ahead and switch slides here just so we can. You all told me it wasn't touchscreen. No. That's not necessarily mine, so I'm gonna go ahead and stick to my business. So, just kind of based off of my notes. So, let's see here. Can somebody describe to me how we could possibly report this in the workplace? May it be at your internship. If you have a job already, let's say something along the lines that needed to be reported. How would we do that? How would you all do that at your workplace?
Okay, so like I would say if you're having an issue or something with like a coworker or something like that, you'll go to the person that's ahead of you guys and like your manager or whoever it may be and tell them the problem and like how you're not comfortable with this or how you think this needs to change or something. But even if it's with your internship or something, then speaking to somebody above on that matter, or like going to, like we have our mentors and stuff, maybe asking them like, oh, what should we do in this situation and stuff like that.
Very nice, very nice. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. So, day one or week one, whichever you choose, the question should be asked, how do I go about reporting inappropriate behavior? Or how do I go about reporting just something wrong, right? It depends on the different organizations. For example, with Ben and I, we work at Michigan Works, so we work with all of you all and people like you all in a different capacity, not just for the summer, but it's a year-round situation. And we actually have a form in our packet. It is an equal opportunity form, and we have a grievance form. So in terms of discrimination or if something else inappropriate happens, we talk about it as soon as we get these registrations kind of started, right? We sit down, we have a process, but we talk about it immediately. We have a, I don't know what to call it, but a bit of an admin that works within our company that we report to. And then for other issues, there's a national reporting system and then a local reporting system. So we have many, many ways that we put out there that we speak to very, very clearly on if you experience any of these things, this is what you can do about it. So there's something you can do. I mean, I understand the pressure of these different situations and the stress that it can cause, but valuing oneself is way more important than somebody's hurt feeling for being inappropriate, right? Let's see here, excuse me. So another question here. How would you all feel? What would you all do if it was your boss, your supervisor, your manager, whatever you want to call them at your, Micah again, somebody please, if they were the ones causing the harm at the job?
So I've actually been in this position before, and I will say it is not a fun process to go through. And the best advice I could give, and if you hear nothing else in this statement, please send an email. Put anything and everything that you can in writing, even if it's a phone call, follow up afterward, and like, I just had a phone call with X, Y, and Z. We discussed this. At the end of the phone call, this was established. Because it's always going to be your word against whoever else's, and oftentimes when you're going against people above you in positions of power, although retaliation is illegal and it should not be accepted or expected in any form or fashion, intimidation is. So knowing that you're going against someone that could potentially do something to slight you, put it in writing so that if that does happen in the off chance or in the worst case scenario, you have that to stand up for yourself. You have evidence, you have proof, and it's not just word of mouth.
Thank you for sharing that. So I really hope everyone's kind of taking maybe some mental notes or even some actual notes if you feel it appropriate. But these are some really key ways, some good ways in which, people just like you all have been in these situations and, possible outcomes of having a positive, I guess we can say, solution to it. Despite the topic, I mean, we just want to be all right. We want to be treated fairly. We want to be able to go to work. We don't want to have to deal with all of this nonsense, right? Let's see. So, lastly, as we approach these types of conversations, I mean, what can we say? Emails are great. That's a fantastic suggestion. It kind of takes a bit of the pressure from having a face-to-face come to whomever moment and being uncomfortable. But some suggestions on having this conversation, it could be, pulling someone to the side and asking if you can talk to them for a moment, privately. There's a good 4, 5, 6, 7 of us in here, career advisors and success coaches and everyone else that you can come to, right? You can talk to us. We'll give you our best advice and we'll take it as far as we need to. certainly unacceptable, and we'll do what we can to help you guys out, to support and to, honor you all. But you can say, I saw, I heard, or I just had this experience. Whatever it takes to kind of relay this message and to bring it to a head, it's all right. It's all right. It's all right. And I kind of feel like I'm gonna start crying if I keep it this. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna pass to who's next. I think Jordan is next, right? All right. Thank you all.
Okay. Thank you, Dallas, for leading that conversation and everyone for participating. I know this is a lot of heavy stuff, and so just want to take a moment to say that we appreciate you having these conversations. So next, I'm going to talk about something really important in all of this, which is bystander intervention. And so we've kind of hinted at this, and some of you may be familiar with the concept, but this is something that's super important for everyone to know, because while you might not be in a situation where you are experiencing a microaggression, you might see it, and so it's just as important to take action when you are seeing those happen to other people, versus experiencing them as well. And advocating for others in the workplace to make it safe and equitable. And so we acknowledge that intervention is not without risk, but on the next slide we're going to talk about a couple different strategies for how to kind of intervene safely and really take action to make change and hopefully support others if they need it. So an important question is, what do we want to see when someone else is being harmed? We want to see intervention, like we said, and how do you do this? There's 4 Ds, and so it's direct, delay, distract, delegate. Try and commit those to memory. I know we're spitting a lot of information, but if you can remember those, it can really help you in these scenarios. So direct is kind of like it sounds. So it's going to be, you're directly talking to that person who made the inappropriate comment or the actions. You are really stepping up to the plate and having that conversation when someone else may not feel comfortable. So whether that's saying, hey, that's, not appropriate to say, or asking them why they say it. You're just essentially helping support that person who is experiencing the behaviors of someone else. So the second is delay. So it's, they're uncomfortable situations, and I think we've all recognized that. And, as a bystander, you might not feel like it's safe, or you might not feel comfortable to intervene directly in that scenario. And if that's the situation, that's totally okay. Just make sure you recognize that, and then kind of take, an assessment of the situation and say, okay, I'll check in with that person afterwards, and determine what should be done next. So, again, just following up and really ensuring that they are taken care of, that they have the support they need, and that ultimately, that environment is being created that can help support them in the long run. Distract. So this is another good one if you, again, don't feel like maybe having that direct conversation, or if, maybe you notice that the situation is, ongoing, or maybe potentially in a direction where it could, escalate to include more of these inappropriate behaviors. You can really just interject, or, try and change the course of the interaction. So whether that's doing it to the person who's making the inappropriate behaviors, or it's coming in to someone, who is receiving those behaviors. So it could be as simple as, like you see something happening, you walk up to the person who is maybe uncomfortable in that situation, and you say, oh, hey, I have a report for you to look at, or something like that, and just kind of distract and help remove them. Or you could do the same to the person who's, committing that behavior, but really just changing the course of the conversation or what's happening so that you're kind of diffusing it without, having that direct interaction, and still really providing that environment to, make change and hopefully make that person feel safe and comfortable. And then lastly, we've talked about this as well, but delegating. So getting someone who can handle these situations. So whether that's your supervisor or HR or another coworker, but really just finding someone else who can help take the necessary actions if you don't feel comfortable or you don't have, the resources or skills. And so as Dallas kind of noted, it's really important to identify who those people are going to be in your workplace, and make sure that you know how to contact them, if there's any proper pathways or procedures, and just really set yourself up for success and others in your workplace. Oh yes, that's a great question. Olivia asked, does anyone know who would be in their workplace? Does anyone know? Allison said a manager, absolutely. Do you know your specific manager? You don't have to provide a name, but have you identified that person? That's fair. But yes, your manager can definitely help, or if they are maybe not the person and you're not sure who, don't be afraid to ask your manager or another coworker if you're not sure who that person is. Yes, Olivia just said, what's the first thing we're all asking next time we go to work? Yes. Who can I report to? Maya said, I saw some hands, but yes, don't forget to ask who you can report to. So before I pass it off, I know we kind of talked about some examples, but I just want to run through kind of a quick scenario to give you some more concrete examples of what this could look like in a situation. So you are in a team meeting talking about how you're going to assign your tasks for your current project. And when it comes to spreadsheet calculations, Tom, who is one of our coworkers in this scenario, suggests that June, who has shared with you that their family immigrated from China to the US, should do it because she's, in quotes, probably good with numbers. So clearly this is a very problematic statement in and of itself. So with direct, we are, again, talking directly to that person. So you could say, Tom, that felt like a harmful thing to say, or can you explain what you mean by that? So directly stepping in for June and kind of, saying, hey, Tom, that's not okay. Why would you say something like that? And really just trying to call out that behavior. But again, if you're not comfortable with that, or maybe it's not the time or environment, you can always do delay. And so in this scenario, it would look like, talking to June afterwards or maybe on the side and saying, hey, I noticed, when you were in the meeting earlier with Tom and what he said, he made, a very inappropriate assumption about you. I'm sorry that I wasn't, able to speak up. How are you doing? And just really checking in with them. And then again, making sure if any action does need to be taken, that you are helping them get to the right person and identifying that for yourself as well. Don't forget. And then you could also address the person who made a microaggression, so you might not feel comfortable in front of others, approaching them, but delay can also mean that you follow up with them after and just have that conversation kind of one-on-one, or maybe, with HR or the person who you need to report to, and just say, what you said about June in that meeting and how she must have been good with numbers is something that's very rude and, presumptuous, and it's not okay behavior. So definitely don't be afraid to use that tactic. And then distract. So you could interrupt when Tom makes that comment and say, June should do it because she's probably, and before he can finish, say, ready for a new challenge, right? So if you kind of see, you can interject. That one's a bit harder, obviously, because you can't necessarily predict what they're going to say. But, you know, if this is like a repeated, you know, behavior or action, Tom's done this before, you know, you could also kind of approach someone and say, hey, you know, this is a decision-making process that isn't right. You know, maybe we should, you know, consider someone else and try and outsource, look for another coworker or something who can kind of help and just, you know, diffuse the situation or maybe take it on so that we're removing June from that environment of repeated poor behavior. And then lastly, delegating. So, you know, delegation is usually something that you do after the fact, again, because, you know, you're kind of following up, and it can be in conjunction with other things as well. So definitely don't think that you have to do one of these interventions on their own. They can be used in conjunction. So you should always, if you see something problematic, really try and say something. So don't be afraid to delegate in addition to using one of these others. But, you know, usually, like I said, it's going to be aftermath. So really just thinking about, you know, what it was like in the heat of the moment and what that exchange was like, and really recalling and talking with people saying, you know, hey, did you hear what Tom said? I'm really unsure of what to do. Would you be willing to follow up? And really just trying to connect with individuals and make whatever is necessary in this company environment, you know, happen with Tom. And then we have the 4Ds, but there is a fifth option, and that option is called staying silent. And we do not want to do that, I think for obvious reasons, but I would love to hear from you guys why you think that it's important not to stay silent in these situations. And I see Micah in the back. Oh, and I see, yes, Cameron up here. There we go. Perfect.
If you stay silent, nothing will happen, and the same problem will continue to exist, or, yeah, the same problem will continue to happen. So if you speak up, like Micah said earlier, you nip it in the bud, and you don't have to worry about anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. And I think, yeah, you bring up a really good point of, you know, you have to say something to put a stop to that behavior. Otherwise, you, in a sense, are contributing to the problem because if you're not saying something, then you're letting that go. And you're basically kind of condoning the actions. So that's why we really have these 4 different strategies so that everyone can find a way that they're comfortable to help these situations based on your own, you know, experiences and, you know, environment of the workplace. But yes, go Micah, go for it.
I was gonna say, excuse me, silence is passive agreement. So by being silent, you're just passively agreeing to what's going on. Even if you don't necessarily agree, you not voicing your disagreements is you agreeing.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And that passive is a key word, and that, you know, kind of like I was trying to say, but as Micah put much more eloquently, you know, if you are not actively going against that, then you are passively agreeing. So you might not be consciously, you know, participating in that behavior, but not, you know, taking a stand against it shows kind of that passive agreement. And we definitely want to create a space where we are challenging that rather than encouraging that. Anyone else want to share? Okay, awesome. So before I pass it off, does anyone have any questions about being a bystander and why it's important to intervene or any of these styles at all? No? Okay, totally cool. So yes, I will pass it off to Tabitha then to take us through the next part of this.
All right, so we've had a lot of really wonderful conversations about what these topics mean and how we can take care of ourselves and other people when we see other people perpetrating them. And that's wonderful, but we want to take a step back and talk about what happens if you find yourself on the end of being the perpetrator. So, not comfortable, but still super important. I really hope and actually really believe that you're all wonderful people, and it's never going to be your intent to harm someone and hurt someone, but intent isn't impact, and your good intent doesn't change the way you harm someone. So let's go through what this looks like. So first and foremost, trust cannot always be repaired. When you harm someone so deeply with a microaggression or make them feel attacked by their identity, that trust sometimes just cannot be repaired. And even though you have good intent and you want to repair it, you're not owed that forgiveness. And also you can't really predict how someone's going to react. You may say something unintentionally to someone and you apologize and they're saying, you know what, you're a person, I'm a person, I get it. And then they never think about it again. But someone else could harm them deeply and they can never look you the same way. And that's not up to you to decide. And also there's not always closure when you think of these aggressions and these harassments that are tied to someone's identity. So for example, if I bomb a math test, which I would probably do right now, and someone said, wow, you're really stupid at math. If I study really hard and I get an A on the next one, someone can't say that I'm stupid at math or I'm not good at math. But if someone makes a microaggression about someone's gender identity or about someone's race, that's tied to their identity, and there's no endpoint and there's no closure on that. And that's something that you may not be able to understand if you don't share that identity, but it's something that is still very valid. And then that person may also never be comfortable with you again, even after they apologize. And again, that person doesn't owe you forgiveness. They don't owe you education as well. So but all that to say, what do we do? Got these lovely slides. So first, apologize. This seems really obvious, but just explicitly taking ownership of not, I'm sorry that hurt you, but I'm sorry I said that. I'm sorry I assumed that. And taking ownership of that is really essential. And then listening. As that video showed, the wonderful lady going through that went through that impact. So listening how that impacted them and not judging them and validating them wherever you can is really important. And then as I said, it's not that person's job to educate you. So doing your own research and fighting off that ignorance that I know Maya and other folks were talking about, fighting off that ignorance so you don't make the same mistake again is super important. And then believing them, because again, I'll never understand what it's like to be a Black woman having someone microaggress against me or someone attacking my gender identity because I'm a cis woman. But I can believe and validate someone who has experienced that, and that's really important. I know that's a lot, and it's pretty heavy, but does anyone have any questions or thoughts about that?